And well, here we are. Welcome everybody to live session number 3. And I hope you have been enjoying the process so far. I know we're a little bit past what we would think is halfway of the design studio. And it is a very intense time of work and design and trying to connect with people in other parts of the world. So let's take some time. Ezio has the idea that perhaps we can open the space to a little bit of questions and answers, but also some ideas for how we can better function, get the materials to Ezio so he can keep monitoring the process and that sort of thing. Ezio, you want to set that up? How would you like this to go?
Yes, I think let's keep it open agenda, and just we can start off by saying we acknowledge that there are challenges with the new platform this year, but having said that, we're quite impressed our students haven't just simply sat back and waited for Gaia Education to fix things up. Rather, they've plunged in and started using Google Drive, Google Docs, lots of email. The WhatsApps are working. And so the communication is intense. We can see it. So there's a lot of good hive of activity. And I feel almost as if, Shakespeare's the witches were brewing that concoction in the beginning. That's what's happening. Although you're not witches, but you're casting your spell and you're putting all the energy and ideas into the pot. And even though there's not much evidence of modules being drafted and popped up, I think they in formation. That's what I can say. Something is brewing everywhere on all 7 projects there. Yeah. So maybe we can go through, just field questions as we go along, because to monitor progress, ideally we see that summary chart where you write up a very brief summary of each module per dimension. That is where we really pick up that the work has been covered and then integrated and so forth. So without having that document up and running, we need to explore other opportunities for how we can still keep track and oversight on what is happening.
And I want to just recognize who we have on the call so far. I see that Sonia has joined us, and Taylor has also joined us. And before that, of course, we had Nick and Cindy and Leo. So I suspect a couple more people will join us in a few minutes, but this is who we have here. Ezio, you think it would be a good idea to call on each of the participants to give us some information, yes, how things are going for them?
Yes, that's a good idea. We can go around starting with, I'll let you do the calling there. Maybe start off with who signed on first, Nick there.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's start with you, Nick. I guess the question is, what are you finding useful and challenging? And we'll take it from there.
Okay. Well, Cindy, I'm sure will jump in anyway if I say anything out of turn, so I won't. I'll be very careful. I think the thing that I'm finding most challenging is actually the time difference, because Alan currently is in Australia, and it either means he has to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, or I have to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And, we're a couple of oldies, and getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning is a bit, is tough, I tell you, and is tough. But, we've actually, got it sort of settled, and it seems to be working. And luckily I'm on the night slot now. So although I get to the point whereby I've had enough, it's the end of dozing, but that I think is the biggest challenge. I think the other thing is, we have, 2 conferences a week between the group, sort of thing, once every 3 days, 4 days, it's about that. And that's working very well. And emails are going round, and there's a drive and everything. So I think it's, it's all there. I find myself on occasions thinking, Well, if we were in a room with a whiteboard or a flip chart and a couple of pens, we could probably suss this much quicker than when we're doing it from a distance. And there's no doubt about that, you know. And I even toyed with the idea, can we do electronic whiteboards and play around with that, which I know exists and you can do it. But, you know, I'm trying to keep some of my technology that I'm using fairly straightforward. And so, because otherwise I'll go on such a big learning curve to cope with it, you know, that way, you know, a lot of time's missed and I need the time to look at all the things I'm interested in looking at. So that's how it is. So those are the challenges that I'm sort of facing. I think the real thing is I'm trying to curb this, Cindy has picked up on, digging around. You follow things up and you just dig around. There's a lot more things than you actually are necessary, but they're great to find out about. So it's a matter of keeping focused, but it's getting there. It's, as far as I feel, it's getting there. We're having a good time. I mean, just to show you, just to indicate the latest sort of bit of high technology, I've formed a storyboard and I've stuck it up on, I found the biggest piece of cardboard I could find, which is about 6 foot by 5 foot. And I've wedged it up on the wall and I'm sticking things up onto that. And that is actually working quite well for me because I can then look at it and then identify. So it's intermediate technology, I think you'd call it these days. So anyway, that's where I am. So.
Very good, very good. Nick, I wonder, in terms, I mean, we're not going to be able to avoid using some technology, but in terms of a whiteboard type of thing that you might be able to use in your team, I wonder if a Google Doc where you can all be working on the same document.
Oh, we're doing that. Yeah, we're doing that. No, it's more, I sort of like pictures.
Okay.
So, and drawing up diagrams and where, you know, something's in this box relates to something in that box, you know, a bit like mind mapping, but I've always done it throughout my life in boxes going all over the place. And so, it's that sort of thing that I think, and anyway, it's like I think we've recognised that our project is actually evolving. Sure. It actually and we keep adding little bits in and you know and that sort of thing, which is brilliant. I mean, it really is shaping up very well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Good. Thank you, Nick.
Your pleasure.
Let's hear from Cindy. So what are you finding challenging and what is working in your team, Cindy?
I think, again, as Nick said, the time difference has given us a bit of a challenge, and I found a wonderful application called the World Clock. And that's how we set the times up. We could never in a million years figure it out without our little world clock, and just slotting those times in there, you know, and trying to build, you know, where someone isn't getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, or something like that. That's probably been our biggest challenge so far. In fact, one of my neighbors, I had the windows open the other night, and one of my neighbors toddled over the other day and she said, I thought you were having a party over there the other night, because I think we had a 10 o'clock meeting, and I'm laughing and talking loud and they could hear other voices. So that's kind of funny, you know.
Yes.
That happened. But that also speaks to the fact that we're actually having a lot of fun with this. And the how we came together with different personalities and from different aspects, and how organically we just kind of fell into certain areas, but yet they overlap, you know, as well. And sometimes Nick will sit there, Alan and I will be going off on a tangent, and Nick will be sitting there, you know, you can just tell, and then Nick and I will go off on a tangent, and Alan's sitting there. So it's, you know, the personalities and all of that, it's just been a lot of fun. We have a boatload of data and ideas. And as Ezio was saying, it is a witch's brew. We've got all of these things like coalescing, and yet you can actually see them forming. You know, you can see this document coming together, and you can see this, you know, coalescing. And so that's really gratifying, especially at this point, because I wasn't sure that we would be quite here, you know, at this point in time.
Right.
So, yeah, that's probably about it. That's probably
Good,
about it.
good, good. Just to give you a little perspective, I just want to share with you that at Gaia Education, we work like this all the time. I'm in the East Coast of the United States, and our office is in Edinburgh, Scotland, and our webmaster is in Portugal, and it goes on like that. So finding a time when we all can meet, we have, but it was a little challenging at first. And the other thing I want to say is that you're all doing a project. We're giving you 8 weeks to do a project that could easily take a full year. So keep that in mind, a bit of perspective. You are doing this as an exercise to learn how to collaborate online, how to bring together important pieces, how to have somebody look at it and give you feedback. That all happens in 8 weeks because it's a course, it's a study course. But if you really want to produce a design like the kind of design that we're hoping you do produce, it does take a long time, 6 months to a year, I would say. So keep that in perspective when you do your work, that you're doing the best, trying to cover as much as you can, but you are limited in time. And maybe that'll help you plan a little bit easier. Okay. Anyway, let's hear a little bit from Leo. So Leo, what are you finding challenging and amazing opportunities with?
So hi, everybody. I think that from my perspective, the first challenge that we meet was just to have all the team on board, because Sandrine was moving from Belgium to Ireland without having any internet access for 10 days. So it was just a challenge to find her. And now we have Lina that is just on vacation for 2 weeks. So we haven't had a meeting that has been complete with 4 of us. So I think it's going to be from September going on. So at this moment, like, we have set up the Google Docs, WhatsApp, the other platforms. We 4 are just collecting the stuff, putting there, and commenting that. So, which is great. We have agreed on Wednesday's calls, which was quite easy, as we are just almost in the same time zone. And for me, it was amazing because we set it up at 11 a.m., which is just a time when I'm at work. So I just got from the office, just clock myself and just do the work there, which is just quite a challenge. But it doesn't bother my family, etc. So it's just good. And another challenge that we have here is just that I'm both involved in the internal team here in the Czech, that we're just trying to shape the agreements, and I'm translating that so that the people, the team, the international team, will have the clarity what we just agreed on, how we would like to think about it, and just to reshape it and put the knowledge from all those modules and dimensions within the agreements that we have from our team, the Czech team. So that's another challenge that it's quite a lot of work on myself in order just to translate the things and explain the team how we think about it, which is good. And so I think that we are just doing well. And like those responsibilities that we have set it up at the beginning, right now we are trying to take the first drafts of the people and trying to review that a bit, though they are not yet finished, but just to work as a team more, because it was just more work of like each dimension has one person to have the first draft of it. And right now I think that's going to be kind of a combination of different people cooperating in one dimension, which is going to be quite challenging for us to just shape it, but I'm looking forward to it. So it's just really, really good.
Great. So it sounds like you're working on different levels, and there are people involved also outside your group that will give feedback and also receive information that you're giving them. That's it's very interesting, and I can see that it can also be very challenging, but I'm glad to hear that you have found some way of organizing it so that everybody can participate and contribute in some way to the dimensions. Good to hear that. Maybe we can hear a little from Taylor. I haven't heard your, there you are. Yeah.
Hi. I am trying to show my video.
There you are. I can see you.
So I am just going to echo most of the challenges that have been said. First off, Pauline is in Tahiti and I'm in Nepal, and then Sonia is in Canada. And so again, time zones, it's a challenge, but we've made it work. And every time we've come together, it's just been like an explosion of ideas and lots of potential directions. So I think at first it was really like grounding ourselves and like, okay, where do we see like common ground? How can we move forward? And also limiting it in this time window of the next 6 weeks, and how we can really see like the fruits of our labor, or like all of our work kind of being more than just the theoretical, but actually like applying the knowledge within something tangible. And I think a lot of that is also reflective me and my expectations of myself as well as the project. Being the leader on the project, there's challenges fitting in the framework, because unlike some of the other projects where they might fit more easily in the sense that they're, you know, an eco-village designing using these principles, the idea of a waste management project, it definitely draws on all of the dimensions, but it's just more like thinking outside the box, and then again, not getting too theoretical, but trying to apply it. So we have been working really well together, and I think if we are able to basically spend the next 5 weeks trying to develop the plan as it's planned, then we should be great.
You will be fine.
Yeah, so that's all I have to say. And then Leo kind of said like the challenge also of being like on the ground is applying like, you know, all of your ideas, and like, you know, Nick said it too, like having a whiteboard and saying, okay, here's our mind map, and we can visualize it really well, but then actually bringing all of those ideas and having to say, okay, I have a meeting with the municipality and the mayor, and how can I convey all of our ideas in a way that it's going to be received and it's going to be able to actually be applied within like the agreements between Clean City, like our project, and the municipality, in the way that like Nepalis work. So it's a challenge, but we're navigating.
Yeah. Thank you, Taylor. Yeah, you do have a unique situation, because you are on the ground, you're working on something that you are very involved with, and yet you have a small team of people who I can see them almost as advisors more than anything, because they're not on the ground with you talking to the municipal leaders and the people that are going to be applying whatever it is that this recycling scheme turns out to be. So that's a particular challenge, and I appreciate hearing you being so enthusiastic about just taking it on, moving along, and I can just see that this is a really big and valuable learning experience for the 3 or 4. Is it 3 or 4 of you on the team? 3, yeah. So I think that's good. That is good. It is challenging, of course. All good things come with a challenge. So, okay, thank you for that. I think we have Sonia still. Sonia, can you unmute your mic and share with us what some of your challenges and great discoveries have been?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Gio. I much more to add from what all of the other participants have shared, aside from, you know, plugging in this large, short time frame project into my life. So it's more, you know, that finding that balance and honoring all of my responsibilities. Yeah, I'm finding that working as a team abroad, like in the furthest corners of the world, really, are it's much easier than I expected it. Yeah, and definitely can identify with what Taylor is saying, is that this is a specific project where things like you know, ceremonies and rituals may not exactly apply to a clean waste management program as easily as they would in an eco-village development design project. So yeah, there's like two parallel streams happening. There's, you know, creating the project that's on the ground, and then also meeting the expectations of the Gaia final design project. Yeah, so but it's beautiful nonetheless. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful, wonderful to hear you and Taylor be so enthusiastic about it, even though you are working from so far away. And also good to see that there are at least two teams that have more than one person represented on this call. So this is very good. It's very rich. And for us, it's very important to hear your feedback and see how we can improve or help or create realistic expectations even for the work that's coming ahead. So Ezio, I will turn it over to you. You heard the reports, and I imagine you might have some feedback to give or other questions to ask.
Okay, I think all the feedback is invaluable thus far. And even though you might feel that your feet might be in a bit of treacle and you tend to get stuck and not knowing how much information to put together or how far down the rabbit hole to investigate, I keep drawing you back to that quilt, the 4x5 matrix, which is your 4 dimensions and the 5 modules in each one, and the questions that have been posed. You know, you go out on a limb, you do all the research, and then you start wondering how on earth are we going to put this monster together. But if you just go to basics, look at the grid, that matrix, and you start writing up each of those modules, however long or however thin they may be. These are just guidelines that have been put together, ideally for eco-village or intentional community type developments. But you'll have to apply yourselves where you've got a bit of a twist to the type of project that your case study entails. For example, the waste recycling project in Nepal that Taylor's leading. That one may not, you might find certain modules don't apply that strongly, but you could always make up something there that warrants itself. And then there's also one or two other projects that also fall into that gap. For example, the project in Peru, which is like a learning center. You can still apply your mind with all the 4 dimensions and 5 modules in each one, but customize them accordingly. So go back to the basics, start putting information together like this, and then going back to Nick's big cardboard, 6x5 cardboard, not quite white sheet, but brown sheet. You'll start seeing how things start fitting together once you've got the summary of each of these modules up there. And you can start seeing where are the strong connecting links, where are the strong flows, what holds the whole thing together. And as soon as you start doing that and you start seeing the pattern that emerges from that, then the strategic framework starts jumping out. What is the vision? What are the mission and values? What are the overarching objectives? What are your tangible outputs, whether they're economic or ecological or whatever? And that is your high-level executive summary that you can use to go and make a major pitch to a municipality or an investment crowd or whomsoever to promote your project here. So it is a lot of slog. You're in the creative juices process right now, but as soon as you apply your minds and go back to that matrix, you'll see that the work starts defining itself. And so thus far, you've been working with the frame of the jigsaw puzzle. Those individual pieces of the jigsaw puzzle will start clarifying themselves, and then you can start seeing how they start stitching themselves together, and then the picture will emerge that you can present for your whole case study as well as the executive summary. So if you feel you get stuck, as I said, go back to your matrix. You can't go wrong by answering those questions, because then it's a tick in the box. You've applied your mind and you can move on. And as soon as you've got all those pieces of jigsaw puzzle floating around, you put the framework around them and things will start gelling together. I think this is the very next thing that will start happening the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. This very loose creative thinking will start forging itself into a picture on all the teams. If you feel that you're running out of time, the timeline that we suggested is there to keep track of things so that you don't fall too far behind. But we are very flexible with giving a week or two's extension, or even more if needed, with the motivation. But just keep plugging away so that we can see good evidence that at least you are trying to achieve the timelines as best as possible.
Yeah, and along the lines of that, the timeline and running out of time or all that, I just want to mention that here too, what we want is to get as good a product as possible, but not a perfect product. I don't think it's realistic to expect a perfect, well-finished professional design in the time frame that we have. But what we are aiming for is something that is good enough to present and to demonstrate the ability to design something using the principles that we presented in the course, that we learned from the course. So just keep that in mind, that perfect is the enemy of good, or something like that. I don't know how the saying goes, but something of that nature. Don't aim for perfection, aim for getting the work done good enough. And then and we'll see at the end what we have. So that's an important thing. Maybe we can now open up a few questions. Are there any questions, doubts, or process type of things that you may have that we can address now? Think about what other students may be thinking also, so they are not here now, but they can be represented through your voice. What are some of the questions that have arisen for you? I don't know if I call on you. If you don't have anything, you can pass. But let's start with Cindy. Cindy, do you have any questions that have come up for you?
For some reason, I couldn't unmute myself here. The question that I guess has come up for me is to respect Ezio's time and how he's organized. And Ezio, we've included you certainly in the Google Docs and probably 100% of the emails that we're exchanging. Do you feel that you are sufficiently a part of our process to know where we're at?
Yes, indeed. I read all the emails, and with a bit of humor about your team's name, the Old Fossils. I do like reading all the emails, but if the Gaia platform doesn't work with uploading of documents, then just feel free to send the documents via email to me. You know, the scoping document, the interim document, and the final document for each module, or any other information that you feel appropriate. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So carry on keeping me in the loop there.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Good. Thank you for your question, Cindy. How about Leo? Do you have any question or anything else?
Yes. Thank you for that. I have one question that is just particular to the permaculture design.
Yeah.
That is just connected with the sizing, because the eco-village itself is just designed for the people, and based on different, let's say, food patterns, there are kind of a sizing, maybe measures how much land you would need to have for the food of vegetarian for the whole year, etc., as well as for animals like goats, hens, etc. So I'm just wondering whether there is some let's say, sizing guidelines, or whether we have somewhere within the group of people something that we can just start with in order to say whether the hectares or the area that we have is going to be sufficient, or we will need to combine it with something, or is it going to be productive for other people within the region.
Leo, I think that's a very important question, because you're almost you're pioneering an approach in the Czech Republic, and also you could say along that latitude of countries. What would it take to survive? How much land? What typical land parcel does a homestead or an eco-village cluster require? You probably need to do a bit of basic research on that. But having said that, we know that we're not islands anymore. We're so dependent on a little bit of global trade. We can't rely fully on our local economy. So we have to be realists at that. But, this could easily turn out into a PhD thesis on its own. And when you look at the ecological footprint, you delve into this in detail. These are the land parcels that they actually estimate that will support humanity. That is a lot of detail and a lot of work. So you might easily deflect that onto the next steps that need to be refined in more detail. And for the purposes of your case study, I refer you back to the permaculture design process that we had in the manual, where we had stage 1 was the site analysis, stage 2, the concept design, stage 3, the detail design, stage 4, implementation, stage 5, operate and sustain. But that this process continually refines itself over time. So even though you might have implemented something, you could quite easily go back to stage 1 on a particular aspect that's already under implementation. So it's like a continuous cycle. But for the case study, we don't expect students to take it further than stage 2, which is concept design. Unless there are things that you want to delve into detail design, into stage 3, or things that have already happened on site, but you need a retrofit, then you come up with a concept design for that particular retrofit. So don't go too far down the line with detail. Concept design is fine. If you estimate that it takes 1 hectare per family to grow sufficient vegetables and root crops for a year, you can leave it at that. You could say that the next steps would be to refine that level of information and customize it accordingly for various latitudes or within different regions within the Czech Republic and so forth.
Hi, Nick. Can I just add that way back in the 70s, in the self-sufficiency era that existed in this country, at least, and I don't know whether the rest of it was around the world, it was reckoned that one family needed between 1 and 5 acres, depending on whether they were vegetarian or ate meat. And so it was in that sort of region if you wanted to be, and that was virtually totally self-sufficient. Life isn't quite like that, as I agree, and we've moved into, but that's the sort of level which fits with the hectare that Ezio suggested there.
Good.
It's actually interesting. Those of you who might have read the Anastasia Ringing Cedars of Russia series of books, one of the fundamental and the underlying story that comes out of that series of books is that families are encouraged to establish themselves a family homestead on 1 hectare of land and surround yourselves with other kind of like-minded folk also living on 1 hectare of land, and that is the greater intentional community. And it's interesting how that 1 hectare is kind of a common denominator almost everywhere. I think in the tropics you could probably get away with a lot less, but as you get further north and further south, then a hectare is probably at least a starting point, which ties in with what Nick was saying.
Yeah. I actually live on about a hectare of land right now. And even though I have an extensive garden and a little area that I save for a woodlot, a little bit of orchard, really on 1 hectare, I can't see supporting my family on this. I don't know what I would need to grow to do that. Maybe a lot of potatoes or something. But it seems like a small piece to grow all the food for one family to me. Maybe there are more efficient ways. I could use maybe more vertical agricultural ideas. But 1 hectare is, well, especially because the house is also in it, in a workshop. So I have my house, my workshop, a woodlot, and so on, all in 1 hectare. Well, that's an excellent question, and I'm sure that there's been a lot of studies done on that, Leo. So thank you for bringing that up.
Can I just maybe have one more?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or later. Yeah.
No.
Because like what I understand was that the overall Eco-Village mission is just to be sustainable. And like from this perspective, I can see like let's say the ecological footprint versus the biodiversity measured by the global hectares, some kind of maybe measure of this self-sufficiency, which is not really the only measure, but one of many. And that also leads to the hectare demands. And the question is whether, because I saw that like the ecological footprint, etc., you can measure it. But I saw also, let's say in Zeebrugge or even in Findhorn, some studies that they just showed how much ecological footprint they have within that eco-village. And I'm not sure if this is just done by universities or it's also done like by themselves. They are using any methodology or anything. So the question is whether there's going to be any hints or guidelines where to search for this.
Leo, I think that the study you're referring to that compared Findhorn with the rest of the UK, and I think also BedZ in London, they also did a comparison of that. If I seem to remember, the researchers in that article was CAT, the Centre for Alternative Technology. I'm sure they had a major hand in developing that research. And Jonathan Dawson was also a contributing editor to that study. He's at the Shoemaker College and a previous online tutor for the economic dimension. But what you could do as an example for your the Czech Republic Eco-Village is to say you would like to engage the Global Footprint Network to try and assist to calibrate what type of ecological footprint will come out of the case study that you're proposing, without having to come up with the numbers. That could be one of your way forwards. So you design almost like a concept for how you would get there, and you almost write up a brief for how you would engage the global ecological footprint people or network, I think that you refer themselves to online, and work with them in the Czech Republic. So they bring in data and they start working with you. If you go onto their website, they also allow people, researchers, to sign up, sometimes for free. If you're a public entity, there's a fee, and then you become collaborators with them, and you share research, you share more data, and so forth. So without resolving the numbers, because that's quite a lot of effort to do in this particular case study, you highlight it as one of the steps going forward.
Okay. I understand the Schumacher College and you mentioned one name, Jonathan
Dawson.
Dawson. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah.
And then maybe, Gio, if you can also put the link to the Global Footprint Network. That's what they call themselves, the Global Footprint Network.
Yeah. But I understand that the Global Footprint Network is working on the level of countries.
They also but they also go down to cities. And but imagine collaborating with them on a development. If I was a green developer, I would approach them and say, in the Czech Republic, a typical development has got a footprint of, say, X. We're doing an ecological footprint which has half X. And these are the reasons and the motivation. And therefore, wouldn't you people rather invest in an eco-village that has half of X than X? That would be the strategy that you could come up with. Because I think pretty much that's what Findorn and BedZ came up with, that their ecological footprint was about half of that of the UK. And half of that in turn was issues that they had no control over, was the public expenditure on, the military, useless MI5s and 6s and infrastructure and warfare and stuff like that, is an overhead to whatever ecological footprint calculation you can. So once you remove that, then the likes of Findorn and BedZ are far more ecological than any other mainstream development.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Very good. I wonder if Sonia might have some questions.
Hi, thanks, Gio.
Yeah.
I think it's more about what's coming to me is I remember reading something about logging our progress in like a diary or a journal and sharing that with, I guess, our facilitator, Ezio. Is that, did I read that correctly?
I think, Sonia, is that the in the guidebook that says the weekly reflections?
Yeah.
Yes, we've done away with that, but somehow that still slipped into the handbook. So don't worry about the weekly reflections.
Okay, phew, that's great.
Yeah. But I think here's an opportunity for Gio to highlight the difference between the immersion report and the case study. Because sometimes there's a bit of confusion there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. People are a little confused because it's two different pieces. They're not really related to each other, but they are both related to design. So the immersion report is just a short report. What is required is that you visit a place that claims to be working with sustainability. Arrange for an overnight visit if you can, and write a little 3 to 5 page report detailing what did you observe, how do they apply the principles that you learned in the course to sustainability on their site. So you would look at it and say, well, how about the worldview dimension? Do they have a place where people can do celebrations? Do they have a place for gatherings? How do they do their celebrations? You can critique a little bit that kind of questions, and you will look at the social dimension. How do they make decisions? What kind of leadership do they exercise? How do they solve their conflicts? And critique some pieces of that. It doesn't have to be every point that's in the curriculum, but critique something about each of the 4 dimensions. That's what the immersion report is about. Whereas the design itself is what you're all doing in a team of producing a design of a project. So 2 different things. The immersion report ideally should be short and not based on studies or anything. It's more like, have you integrated the principles of designing for sustainability, and how do you see it, apply it in other places? I hope that addresses that question. Okay, and so if Sonia doesn't have any other questions, I hope that I answered that. And then let's hear from Taylor.
Hi.
Hi.
So I just want to ask about the, again, like there's a certain amount of time within this project. And so we have maybe long-term goals and then short-term goals. And again, our project is not as like tailored. So for instance, we're developing this sort of toolkit, or if you will, like a comprehensive approach to waste management. And it's going to be rooted in the success or model here in Nepal that I'm building. And so that framework, like we recently, Clean City was contacted by Precious Plastic, which is I'm not sure if you're familiar, but I'll just send it here in the group. But essentially, like we have a facility built, and so we're looking at the next phase, which will include upcycling and really recycling. And we're looking at these machines because Precious Plastics wants to do a pilot program in Nepal with their latest version of machines. And they want to start it in end of September, beginning of October. So this is a company that basically provides the blueprints and information to make do-it-yourself recycling machines all over the world. And they've been really successful at making small-scale projects, but their latest version of machines are going to be the first time that they can actually do like a scalable amount of recycling of like tons of plastic. And so, for instance, we're thinking about making like trash bins from recycled plastic, and public benches, or things that wouldn't be like necessarily built infrastructure, like roads, or that could cause, you know, microplastics with wear and tear over time going into the ground, which could pose more problems remediating soil. And so again, we're looking for solutions, and they seem to be really keen on working together. So is this something that should be included? I'm sorry, I just went on like a long rant and for everyone listening, but is this something that should be included in the project because they are integral into, like, let's say the next phase of upcycling, but it's not necessarily, does that question resonate?
Yes, Taylor, I would certainly include it in your plans,
Okay.
and almost like say that these are initiatives that are currently being explored.
Oop, I think we lost Ezio here. Oh.
Coming up. So you start.
Ezio, we lost you for just 10 seconds. Can you repeat?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say you can certainly add it in your case study to say, you know, if it's adding value to the case study, especially if it needs a bit of space on your site, and the synergy between Precious Plastics, what they're trying to promote, and what the case study is trying to promote, then put it in. But you don't need to delve into all the detail of what Precious Plastics are doing. Just put a few images of what they're doing and what space that could be allocated and the value that they would provide, and they would have a footprint in your particular proposal if you think it's appropriate.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. We have just a few minutes left here, but I want to hear also from Nick, if you have any questions, Nick, that we can address at this point.
No, not at all. My one question was going to be that Cindy's already picked up is are we getting our stuff sufficiently stuffed to Ezio so that he can keep a guardian eye on us. That's all. So and I'll take the hint of you saying there's not too much time, and I'll say that's it.
Thank you. Okay, well, this may be it, but I want to give Ezio a chance to close up.
Yes, maybe to say this last week to 10 days has been quite tumultuous for our family. We've packed up our house and we're on the road, and I probably would have liked to have tuned into a few more meetings that each team was busy with. But if you're at a critical point from now on and you need my input, just send me a WhatsApp and say, we've got a meeting tonight or the next day, can you join us? And I'm flexible. I think the worst is behind us now, and I can engage in teams again quite willingly. So send me an invite if you feel you need my input. I'm open. Yeah. And
Ezio, would you mind putting your WhatsApp number in the chat box? That way people can get it.
How do I put it?
You see the chat box?
Oh,
yeah.
Is it in the share?
No, it's in chat right next to share screen.
I've just got more. Oh, there it is, chat. Yes, okay.
So WhatsApp has worked quite well for me too, to connect with people who are far away, and you all probably know that too. Sometimes I try 2 or 3 different technologies to finally get what I'm looking for. But anyway, here we have a few options.
Yeah.
All right.
It's worked very well with Taylor and myself and one other team as well. So, yeah, you use it. It's there, and if you're in a Wi-Fi zone, it's for free.
Very good. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for this third live session. Look forward to seeing you in the next 2. Take care.
Thank you. Okay. Good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Bye.